Hi, hello everybody. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Lele. I was at HEC from 2015 to 2016. I did master in marketing at HEC, and now I'm working in tech in the US and Asia, mainly in transportations and healthcare tech. So I'm really honored to be your host today. So for the start of the program, I would like to introduce Sandeep. Sandeep is the co-president of our HEC Alumni Association in the West Coast to give us a welcome speech. So take it away, Sandeep.
Thank you, Lily. So hi, first of all, thank you for joining us today. I would like to, first of all, I want to make sure that things are fine at you and your families. And also, I'm very happy that you all are here. We have a panel discussion, and afterwards we have a networking discussion. And thanks to the team, Lele, Blandine, Hugo, Aurelia, and also the support from Ophelie and Vincent from HEC Alumni Association, who have made this event possible. And I hope you enjoy your evening and take a memorable insights from the panel discussion. So off to Lele.
Hi, next we have Vincent from HEC. Vincent, would you like to have some word?
Yes, sure. Thank you very much, Lele. Thank you very much, Sandeep, for giving me a little bit of time to speak. I'll be very quick. My name is Vincent Musel, and I'm the director of the HEC representative office in the US, which is based in New York. So it's great to see all of you online, whether I've seen some names that I know, I've seen some others that I don't, so I'll be happy to connect later on, of course. We have a very impressive lineup of speakers, so I really don't want to delay. Just want to mention that my role, of course, as a representative of the school is to, develop the brand of HEC in North America, which is quite a challenge. Of course, as you all know, most of your alumni, we are mostly a European brand, and we are doing extra efforts to try to have better visibility in the US. And of course, for that, we rely a lot on the alumni community, on the chapters that are based all across the US in all major cities. One of them, a very active one, is the one in San Francisco that Sandeep just mentioned. So I really want to address a big thank you to the team in the Silicon Valley, Aurelia, Sandeep, Lele, Blandine, Hugo. Great job to put that together. We're really proud of your dynamism and everything that you do. So thank you very much for that. If you guys, if this is inspiring for some of you in the room and you want to create some initiatives also, you want to provide content, feel free to do so, because I'll always be there to help you, to support you, whether it's with time, with energy, with ideas, with contacts. More than happy to do so. I'll leave my email address in the general chat, for you can reach out to me if you want to with your ideas, your suggestions, everything. I'm very open to everything. I just want to mention very quickly that this obviously this event is the highlight of April. In May, we'll have a discussion with HEC Professor Michel Fender is on the trends of logistics in the post-pandemic period. It's going to be super interesting. It's an HEC, LSE, NYU event. As we know, we have this common diploma called Triumph. It's an executive MBA, so we're doing this all together, 6th of May, and I'm going to send you the registration link also on the chat. There will be also a discussion with Professor Jérémy Guez from HEC Paris on the jobs and the rebound of the economy in the US post-pandemic. This is going to be in June. The date is still TBC, so I'll let you know. You can email me again for all of this to be added to our newsletter. You can email me to be added to our WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups. whether it's the one of the association, of the chapters, of the school, the foundation, whatever you are interested in and that relates to HEC, I'm here to help. And I'll be happy to do so. So I'm done for now. I really, as I said, I wanted to be quick, as I know the most interesting is still to come. So thank you again, Sandeep, Lele. I wish you all a super great evening, and I remain at your disposal, of course.
Thank you, Vincent. So now we have a sponsor speech. We have Thomas Simone, who is the head of the international desk at Bank of the West, Bnp Paribas. Thomas, are you there? Oh, we would like to have a few words from you, Thomas. They've always been a sponsor. They've always been supporting this event for the last 3 years, and you're very happy to have them today. Over to you, Thomas.
Thank you, Sandeep. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me tonight. Well, I'm Thomas Simone. I'm SVP and head of the international clients at Bank of the West. I'm not HEC, but I used to work very closely with you guys because I was in charge of the area of Juillan-Josas and all the west region of Paris, where your campus in France is based. Well, it's a real pleasure to support again the Silicon Valley Technology Forum for the third year, yes, as you mentioned, Sandeep, in a row, as a sponsor, and to support the HEC Paris Alumni Association. So more than ever, being close to the communities that we serve is important for BNP Paribas Group. In France, we are closely working and supporting HEC Paris, as I said, and obviously we finance a lot of student cohorts, perhaps some of you. Then years later, we can find these students becoming entrepreneurs, executives, investors, and we are still here to support you and to support your needs and your international projects. So BNP Paribas, one of the largest banks in the world, is represented in 72 countries, and specifically in the US through Bank of the West, which our activities are with our activities of retail, business, corporate, and wealth management. So I would like to highlight tonight one specific area that the bank is working related to the topic of this event. So first, as we are fundamentally a different bank, taking bold action for the planet and leading in the area of sustainability, global impact, diversity, we use AI and data science to propose solutions to our customers to monitor their carbon impact on their purchases or in their investments. We collaborate with in this area with companies such as Docusign or Green in US or Greenlight in Europe. This is a good example I wanted to just share with you about how AI and data science can help to innovate on the finance industry. And I know there is panelists who will talk more about that tonight. And I will let the floor to them and let Blandine introduce the panel. And again, thank you for having us. And you can count on BNP Paribas Group, Bank of the West, to support you in your project. Thank you, Sandeep, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Just a second. Now we have Michelle from Docusign. Michelle, are you there?
Okay.
Yes, we have from Docusign, and Docusign is always our event sponsor for the place. Now we are online, but we're always very, very thankful to them to providing the space in San Francisco for having these events offline, face-to-face. But now we have Michelle, who is going to share some words from Docusign. Over to you, Michelle.
Yes. Thank you for the invitation. Yes, I'm Michelle O. I've been with Docusign for nearly 2 years in the pre-sales organization, and I was lucky enough to participate at HEC in an exchange program back in 2017. And this is an experience that helped shape me become a better and global thinker, and of course, provided me with great lessons learned that I regularly implement at Docusign today. And, you know, Docusign has naturally been an interesting organization to be a part of during this time of remote work and connection, of course, with COVID. And given the disruption with COVID, Docusign is, of course, not a company that's unheard of when discussing accelerated innovation and new practices in a post-pandemic world. And it's so much so that our leadership has put a focus on the idea of the anywhere economy. And so that's where, of course, the hyperconnectivity of the internet and mobile devices have resulted in increased expectations of delivering anything and anytime and, of course, anywhere. And while Docusign's most commonly known for e-signature, we actually do a lot more than that. We have products that help customers manage their contracts from end to end with our Agreement Cloud platform, which we're excited to have released late 2 years ago. And we've increased our investment in this platform and AI specifically most recently, and most notably with our recent acquisition of our longtime partner Seal Software in early 2020. And through this investment, we're able to release new products that leverage different AI technologies to ultimately deliver a smarter and safer and faster negotiation process. And these are a few of the many ways that Docusign and its technologies have helped alleviate a lot of the friction that's come about with the increasing trend of remote work and communication. And yeah, again, really excited to be a part of this call and appreciate the time to meet everyone and see everyone here. If you're interested in learning more, we have our release notes and our blog that are regularly updated on our website with our latest news and releases. So yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Michelle. So now we're gonna move on to the part that everybody's been looking forward to, the panel discussions. So the topic this year we're gonna tackle on is how AI and data science are going to accelerate creativity and innovation, especially during the post-COVID digital world. So I would like to invite on stage Blandine. Blandine will be our moderator for today. Hey, Blandine, you're on mute. So really quick introductions about Blandine here. Blandine is a very active member of our HEC Alumni Chapter Association in the West Coast chapter. And Blandine is also the author of all of our monthly alumni stories that got shared on our newsletters and our social media. So they are amazing. So please go check them out on our social media if you haven't. And Blandine has if I'm not wrong, right? Blandine has the first acquaintance with AI and big data as a product marketing manager at Solocal, where she launched all of their programmatic advertising portfolio. And then when Blandine moved to San Francisco, she got into voice tech and chatbots, playing with all the Alexa skills, building them, Google Actions, etc. from blueprints. So yeah, Blandine, let's take it away.
Thank you, Lele, and thank you for having me as a moderator tonight. But like the light shouldn't be on me today; it should be on our stellar panel that I'm really excited to introduce. So I will try to share my screen so you have the names and pictures. That's gonna help a little bit. Can I do that? Can you see something? Here you go. Sorry, I'm a little slow with technology. Yes, I can see it. So it looks like everyone can see it. So yeah, I'm really excited to be moderating the discussion tonight with our 4 amazing speakers. So joining us tonight, we have Ruslan Momot. Ruslan is Assistant Professor of Operation Management at HEC Paris. He will soon be joining Kellogg School of Management, and he teaches and does research, but he also works with corporates and governments. He helps them deal with one of artificial intelligence major concern, that is privacy. And it does that by developing regulatory instruments and algorithms that actually respect privacy. So I know we'll go deeper on the topic during the panel discussion. So welcome on stage, Ruslan. Joining us as well, two CEOs of AI-first companies, the seasoned entrepreneur Edwin Kudabatchen. So Edwin is the co-founder and CEO of Feedly, and Feedly has developed an AI research assistant. His name is Leo, and Leo helps users cut through the noise and keep them up to date with the news that matters to them. And I believe we all agree that it's been a loud and overwhelming couple of years when it comes to the news, so we can definitely all use help from Leo. And our third speaker is former banker Valery Talma. Valery is now the founding shareholder and the CEO of Merlyn.AI. Merlyn.AI is a fintech company that applies signal processing and artificial intelligence algorithms to the stock market data in order to identify higher returns and lower risks. And we'll talk more about that, about the way Merlyn uses big data and machine learning to make investment decisions. And last but not least, welcome on stage to Jacques Gerber. Jacques is a former entrepreneur and now managing partner, at Fund AI+X. Fund AI+X is a venture capital firm that specializes in investing in artificial intelligence companies. So that's the AI component of the name of the company. But they are not investing in just any kind of AI companies. They invest in those that are built at the convergence of multiple disciplines, and that's the X in the name of the company. And they also invest in companies that are using AI to provide solutions to the energy transition. So if you all want to join me on stage, that would be awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight and share your thoughts on AI and data science as an accelerator for creativity and innovation in a post-COVID world. So as mentioned, we will be going through the panel discussion, but we'll have a time for Q&A at the end of the discussion in about 50 minutes. So make sure you ask your questions. You can do so by using the bubble icon on the right-hand side of your screen. Make sure you use the channel Q&A so your questions don't get lost. And we can make sure they are addressed at the end of the panel discussion if they haven't been addressed during the discussion. You can also use the emoticons at the bottom of the screen to share your real-time reaction with us. I could see some of you are already using that. That's really helpful to get the temperature of the room while being all remote. And so without further ado, let's dig in the topic. So what drove us to tackle this topic tonight is actually some recent studies that are showing that the pandemic has accelerated data and AI, putting the adoption of these technologies 4 to 7 years ahead of the curve. So that's at least one of the positive effects of the pandemic. There must be some, at least. And one of the reasons for that is that the disruption was basically so big for many companies that they had to take drastic, once-in-a-lifetime types of these decisions just to keep operating. And that's where artificial intelligence and data science have been really at the heart of creative problem solving and innovative solutions. And I want to kick off with Valery, because the stock market has not been immune to chaos recently. So can you tell us more about how Merlyn.AI approaches that and how you are actually applying AI to investment decisions?
Hello, Blandine. I'm very thrilled to be on this panel tonight and to be part of this great community. Thank you to the organizer, Vincent, Sandeep, Lele. And I can testify I got my first student loan from Bnp Paribas at Jouy en Josas. So maybe it was you who disbursed the loan to me. the gentleman from Paribas, from BNP, I didn't get your name. So how can we talk about artificial intelligence and automatization and digital and a step forward in digital life? The professionals in the financial industry, the bankers, the investment advisors would love you to believe that they make their investment decisions based on rigorous financial analysis, fundamental economic data that justifies their degrees and their masters and their PhDs and their diplomas. Well, there's another reality to the story, which is that the stock market responds to two perennial factors, which are fear and greed. And no matter the amount of analysis and data, people will react with the fear to lose their money and the greed to make more. Based on this very simple principle, our company has done research and development for over 20 years, really. 20 years of analyzing big data on the stock market to identify trends and patterns that replicate themselves no matter what happens, whether it is a war in the Middle East or a virus coming from China or an earthquake or just a bubble. The reaction is always the same, and the stock can only go two ways, up or down. So our company has spent those 20 years deciphering how those trends repeat themselves. And 10 years ago, we have been able to model something that still works today and that we haven't touched. There are enough trends in the market that can be identified if you apply the right tools, the right filters, the right data, the right formulas. And I don't do the formulas, I do the finance part. But all to say that it is extremely valuable to have a disciplined approach when the discipline breaks down and people start to react to fear, which leads to crashes, or to greed, which leads to bubbles. So to bring this in a nutshell, there is a golden rule. You have to find it. You have to look hard enough to find it. And this rule allows machines to analyze and teach themselves what's happening in the market and to make the right investments. And this, of course, was extremely valid in this year, which was one of the highest volatility I've ever seen in the stock market, where you heard the worst fears and you had the worst greed coming on. And our machines and our models and our algorithms were able to live through that and to come out on top. So I would say that this is an example, a simple example, where artificial intelligence can produce simple results that work.
Wow, that's quite impressive. So no human intervention, just the AI working by itself to make decisions.
Yes.
Isolated from the chaos.
Well, there was a lot of human intervention in the writing of these things, but that was over 10 years ago. Now it's on autopilot. And of course, we watch it every night and every day very closely, but our hands are tied. We can't open the hood and we can't touch it. Well, we could, but we don't. Another quick comment I would like to make is that AI is, of course, a term that is used everywhere and on anything, and it's very trendy and attractive to be an AI company. There are many sorts of AI. The one that is the most talked about, the most well-known today, is neural networks. And I'm sure all the participants, if you have any type of interest in AI, you will have heard about it. Neural network is the most advanced technology today because of computing capacity. You are now able to handle gigabytes and terabytes of data in milliseconds, which leads to those results. We don't use this one. We use something that you would call machine learning, i.e., the system learns, analyzes, and improves itself, but it does not need billions of data.
Okay.
It only needs the data that it can find on the market, and therefore, my caveat is everything is AI, and when when you speak to someone about AI, ask them what AI they're using.
Well, that's a great segue to ask Edwin a few more questions about how to deal with tons and tons of data, because, well, we all know the news has been pretty crazy lately, and the human brain just couldn't keep up. So we'd love to hear more about how you are actually helping your users to deal with that, and yeah, how are you doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. I would like to also thank you for inviting me. It's great to be part of this really great community. As you mentioned, Feedly at the heart is a service who is helping close to 20 million now professionals keep up with the news that helps them be the best at their work. And one of the things we heard from a lot of those professionals is that the volume of information is becoming so loud that keeping up can be very overwhelming and very time consuming. So we embarked about 4 years ago on, how could technology really help people become expert into topics more efficiently? And that's where we thought that, AI might be a really interesting opportunity. But a lot of the AI that exists currently in the market are black boxes, basically, are kind of, algorithms where you feed a lot of data, the algorithm learns the patterns, and the algorithm can then make better decisions than humans could do. I think that's kind of the first generation of a lot of AI applications. That model didn't really work for us. If you, for example, are an analyst in the gaming industry and you want to keep track with all the funding events in the gaming industry, using that black box AI as a way to tell to your research assistant that you're interested in gaming events would be really intense. You would need to read a lot of articles about this, and you would need to understand it, and it would be really inefficient, because if you change your mind, it will also, there will be a lag between what you really need and what the algorithm, which is usually turned into the past, could determine. And you can see some of that in your YouTube feed or in your Facebook feed, where basically the algorithm is an echo of your past behavior and not always a very transparent one. The approach we took was a little bit different. The challenge we set for ourselves was, what if we taught a computer how to read? What if a computer could basically read an article and create a level of understanding that this is in the gaming industry, and create a level of understanding that this is a funding event? Or if you're a cybersecurity person, determine that this is a cyber attack, determine who is the target of the cyber attack, and be able to use that understanding as the interface between the person and the machine, with the vision that a more transparent and collaborative AI can really become an assistant and help you become the better you, rather than trying to replace you. We're still early in that challenge. I think, as you mentioned, AI is really accelerating because there is a lot of underlying trends and maturity. But I still feel like we're at the 0, 2, 0, 5, maybe 1% of what AI can do. And the same way, mobile is ubiquitous today, and you wouldn't imagine building an application without thinking about mobile. I think that every business and every application going forward will be AI first, and will have a learning component. And hopefully that learning component will be something that us as human can have a lot more control over, and it can be more of a symbiotic relationship than a replacement.
Yeah, that's a great point. So, considering that, I would have thought that investments for AI companies would have been going through the roof. However, the numbers show that Q2 2020 was actually one of the lowest quarter in terms of investment. So, Jacques, can you tell us more about that, and why is it so when like the beautiful startups that we are having on stage tonight are showing how much AI is becoming mature and solving problems that are actually in the real world?
Yeah, thanks, Blandine. And they're right. we are only, especially Edwin just mentioned, we got 0.2 or 0.5. I don't know what the number is, but the truth is that we are really at the very, very beginning of this wave. I think what you're mentioning is pretty incidental. Q2 2020 was right after the pandemic hit. So, everything stopped before it resumed. And we just recently got the numbers from 2020 and the first quarter of 2021. And it's true that there was a reduced number of deals made in the AI space last year. And I'm focusing here on VC deals, so on the private sector. I'm not talking about the public sector, IPOs and others in the VC sector. But the amount of money is actually drastically accelerated. I got the number here right in front of me. In 2019, $38 billion were invested by VCs in AI companies, and that reached 52.5 last year in 2020. So
wow.
a huge increase in the amount of deals in total, as you can imagine, and mostly during the second quarter, but the money has gone to the roof. And that has actually even accelerated even further in the first quarter, because in the first quarter, there's already been almost 20 billion that has been invested by VCs into AI companies. So it's huge. There's a lot of money. The size of the deals are increasingly as well. They in fact doubled the median between 2019 and the first quarter of 2021. So there's huge deals. The valuation are going to the roof. It's a really good time to invest and to look at AI right now. And as again, Edwin and Valery mentioned, it's just the start. It's been a while I've been hearing about AI, of course. There have been some great successes in some key areas. We all know about Siri and Alexa and many other examples like that. But it's going to impact absolutely every sector of the industry. It's going to impact the way we work. And I like the analogy Edwin mentioned about mobile phones. The very first one, everybody were like, what would you want something as big and expensive with you just to make a phone call? And then, businesses started to use it where they really needed it. And, very quickly, everybody got one, if not more than one phone that got several more efficient and productive. So the same thing is going to happen with AI.
But there's this major concern of privacy. Edwin mentioned that. I like the black box AI that you use as term because it's really something that people get worried about. And we're lucky tonight to have Ruslan, who's an absolute expert on this. So Ruslan, can you tell us more about what's going on in terms of privacy, how the pandemic actually has put the spotlight even more on this issue, and where we're going forward?
Sure, Blandine, and thanks a lot for inviting. I'm really happy and excited to be here. So essentially, I'm a bad cop here. So you were all the good cops, and I'm a bad cop. So I'm this moderator between the regulators and between the AI companies, right? So you all said that AI is good, and AI kind of is. We are observing the increase in the usage of AI, but what I do in my work as a researcher, I look at the privacy concerns that consumers have, and I look at how these privacy concerns can be alleviated by the companies and by the governments. And essentially, I consult both the companies and the governments, the regulators like CNIL France or FTC in the United States. Essentially, my work is somewhere in the middle, and we try to understand the point of view of the governments, the consumers, and so on, and also the point of view of the customers. So it looks like privacy concerns are increasing, right? So we see these surveys which show that more and more consumers are becoming more concerned about their privacy, about their data. We've seen, well, we all know Cambridge Analytica, right? And I think after Cambridge Analytica, that all started. And COVID kind of added up to that. I think during COVID, at least I myself saw like numerous articles in Financial Times, New York Times, and other outlets, which said that we are approaching the state where the governments will control all our movements. They'll have all the transparency. So all the government, like let's say governments like Singaporean government or Israeli government, they have very transparent system with regards to contact tracing. But then there are fears that these contact tracing capabilities will also lead, will not just be closed, and they will still stay with us. And then the governments will have a lot of power and a lot of control over that. But apart from that, I think the trend is that, yes, consumers are becoming more worried. We see a lot of, like, because consumers are becoming more worried, governments and regulators are becoming more stringent. So they introduce new laws and regulations. Just recently in California, I think last year during the presidential elections, Californians voted for Proposition 24, which is supposed to kind of strengthen California Consumer Privacy Act. There are differences in opinions here, but it is supposed to strengthen it. And so these new regulations lead to the fact that companies are becoming more and more well, not worried, but looking into privacy as one of the competitive edges. So privacy becomes a competitive edge for the companies. So companies like Apple, Google are already trying to implement some of the privacy preservation strategies. Smaller companies don't have that many resources. And right now, smaller companies are mostly kind of trying to comply with all the regulations. But there is much more to that. And that's pretty much what we are trying to consult companies on. So how can they change their businesses in such a way that these businesses and let's say that their AI capabilities are privacy preserving? So I think, yeah, so answering your question, Blandine, I think we definitely saw the kind of the fear of these mass surveillance and so on and so forth. But more generally, consumers are more worried about privacy. We have new regulations, and companies are starting to compete on their privacy capabilities. So I think in future, in a couple of years, privacy preservation will be very important to companies. And this will be one of the angles which will distinguish between good companies and bad companies, like slightly worse companies. Well, not privacy-preserving companies. Let's not call them bad companies. Even nowadays, you can see the difference. I just saw a recent article in New York Times which compares Facebook and Apple. Apple is really pushing forward towards privacy. Recent iOS update changed a lot of things. I think right now we have to actually make decisions with regards to our privacy when we are using iPhones. But Facebook is quite reluctant still. So Facebook is trying to react to the government's accusations, but not changing too much in their operations.
Yeah, I hope Mark Zuckerberg is on this call and can hear you.
Maybe.
Maybe. So that's my vision, Blandine. Yeah.
And what's your take on the governments being more and more involved? Because I read some articles, like opinion papers, basically stating that putting more regulation would kill innovation, and that basically
So throughout these couple of last years, I attended a lot of roundtables with the regulators, UK regulators, Belgian, French regulators, US regulators, and so on. And the conclusion that I made is that regulators have no idea what they're doing. They literally say this, that we have no idea what this implementation, what this privacy law will do to business. What will it do to a company like Amazon? What will it do to a company like Feedly? So we don't know, and they are essentially introducing these regulations by trial and error of some sort. So of course there is a kind of a possibility that innovation and so on will be frozen due to privacy concerns, due to privacy preservation. And we see quite a lot of that. I talked to some people from Google who are responsible for privacy preservation at Google, and they're privacy officers at Google. And what they say is that essentially their the bad guys there. So no one likes them because they prevent engineers from introducing new features, new cool features, which are potentially not privacy preserving. They say, hey, no, this is not a good feature. But they also talk to the managers, to the consumers, and consumers don't like them because to the consumers, it seems like privacy is not preserved. To managers, well, it's a different story, but it looks like, yes, this concern is valid. But then what is more valuable to us? Our privacy, our data, or innovation? Well, I think it's an open question. So there is no right or wrong answer here. So yeah, so it's an open-ended question, I think.
Well, let's everyone reflect on that. And I think it's a good time to take a question from quite adjacent to privacy. It's like bias, the question of bias in algorithm. I think it's a very interesting one. So what can companies do to make sure their AI is actually not reinforcing and amplifying biases? Do you have a take on that in your companies or on the market? Maybe Edwin at Feedly, are you doing anything specific to make sure bias is not
yeah, absolutely. We are. I think a lot of these algorithms are being trained by your data set, and it's very easy for data set to get biased. I think one of the things you learn as you go through that AI journey and becoming a more AI first company is the first image that you have of AI is very fancy mathematics and very fancy data scientists trying to optimize, really complicated models. But the reality is, as you start playing with it, you realize that it's really about the quality of your data. And if you look at, for example, at Tesla, the real core innovation, there is innovation in the chip and there is innovation in the architectures. The real innovation is their ability to take video recording from millions of cars and have a very powerful data annotation tool that enables you to annotate these videos in 4D, 3D plus time. And this is what empowers, computer vision to be deployed at large scale. And so as you mature as an AI company, you realize that your raw asset is really data. At some point, you really start realizing how much bias is there in my data. And we obviously care very much about this. There's a lot of diversity data that gets built into your data sets. There is political views that can be coming in and shifting understanding of what Leo sees and learns. The way we approach this problem is by usually creating a first version of a model. Let's say that we want to teach Leo to understand a concept like, product launch, something as basic as a product launch. We will teach him a model that is going to have 80% accuracy and recall. So it's basic understanding, maybe a fifth grader understanding of, what is a product launch. Then we'll launch that model out. And our 20 million users will be shown these different articles that Leo thinks are in topic or on the verge of that topic or not in that topic. And we start collecting data from our community. And we're lucky enough that we have a very diverse community. And we see in that feedback the different nuances that can be captured. And then we have a manual QA process where we review this. And this is just one example. I think the real story behind this is if you're an entrepreneur or if you're in a company and you're planning to invest heavily on AI, just anticipate that the process of gathering data, annotating it, keeping it up to date is going to be 80% of the effort. And the fancy mathematics and the models are usually going to be 20%. I mean, there's a few companies like Google and Facebook and a few others that are really pushing the limits on the AI research, that 20%. But most the other companies are really spending a lot of time making sure that the data is non-biased, and that requires a lot of work.
Yeah, I believe so. Jacques, do you want to add something?
You think to that? Yeah,
Sure.
I was going to do that. So first, again, it is absolutely right. First of all about the data, and investors are very well aware of that. You know, the first questions that entrepreneurs in AI get when they meet investors is not so much about their AI, because most of them are not inventing much. They're just reusing tools that are available for all to use. It's about, you know, what data you have that is unique to you. What data set did you collect? How did you get it? How much data is it with? And a lot of the value of the company is actually based on the data it was able to gather, how much it's representative of what it's trying to do, how complete it is, how large it is. So this is a major factor. And then beyond the data, that's what you do with it. And here, you know, first of all, as Valery mentioned, there are many AIs, there are many types of algorithms. Some of them being neural networks, some of them taking us very far away. A big problem that was also mentioned, I think both by Valery and Edwin, is the black box problem. A lot of AIs today work like black boxes, and might be okay in some cases. It might be even a competitive advantage for, you know, Merlin to be something that, you know, you don't need to know how much it really works. It gives you information and you can monitor it. But however, where it's a huge problem. In our fund, we focus more on industrial problems, mission critical problems. So, you know, if Amazon AI is wrong 2% of the time, it doesn't give you the best book or movie to watch next, it's not a big deal. But if it's the autopilot of an aircraft and it crashes 1% of the time, that's not the same story, right? So the black box is just not acceptable for a lot of applications. And if you want AI to be, you know, go beyond some basic activities that are good for retail and things like that, we need to go beyond black box. And that impacts privacy, that impacts bias, that impacts the quality of the data, that impacts the kind of algorithms you do. And in fact, intelligence is not just about algorithm, it's also about what people know about the space. So especially in the areas where we are in industry, you know, there are a lot of people who know a lot about their space, who have built models. It's true in finance as well. They've been mathematical models. They don't know everything, but they know better than anybody else for certain things. And you can actually use AI to reuse those models to compare what they would provide compared to others, and really provide you the best of both worlds, and then give you some visibility on what's going on, because it can tell you that given the circumstances, it will use one way of looking at it, which is more based on model or other type of things like pattern matching, etc. And we see that a lot in the industry, where a lot of models have been built. We see that in finance as well, much less in retail, where it's less important. But all those things are happening now. There's a lot of research. There is even research to use AI to address the problems of AI, you know, to find in your data set where the bias are, because we humans are very bad at detecting our own biases because we live in it. It's very hard for us to see that we're biased in one way or another. Actually, AI can be used to detect that, can detect the holes, can detect the situations that are representative in your data set, but not of the reality. So there's a lot of research in those things that's going on that's very impactful, and investors are well aware of that as well, and that's going to drive a lot of the innovation in the coming years.
Add something to that? I just thought so because you had to unmute your mic, but no pressure.
Okay. No, I think that's I think Jacques is right. The only thing I would add is I really believe that we're at the extreme beginning of what it can do. We are realizing that we have an extremely powerful tool, but I would be hard pressed to say which industry is going to use it first and best, and to the best benefit of the users. And I think it's a question I'd like to ask all of you. Where do you think we're going to really have tangible, life-changing improvements and innovation coming from AI? I would say medicine is a big one.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But I think it's
happened. Yeah.
Self-driving cars, I think that's a big disappointment for now, but it will be back. But we are at the beginning. And the other thing I wanted to say is I would love to hear from all of you. We've talked about privacy, which has to do with the moral aspect of our society to some extent. Privacy is very much a moral judgment. I think there are very important areas of morality when you talk about innovation, and especially AI, which is at the forefront of technology, but everything else in technology. How do you make sure that it's not just the wealthy people that benefit from it?
Yeah, that's a great question. That is, so topical right now. We can see that the pandemic actually has not hit everyone the same way. At the beginning, we were saying the virus doesn't discriminate, and actually now we can see that it does. So yeah, that's a great question. Any ideas on how it's gonna take shape? Or we just have to think about it?
No, it's a great question. Maybe Ruslan has a better eye as he works with government and corporation, or at least some aspect of it. I think Valery is right that the moral aspects are numerous. It's not just privacy. It's not just wealth. It's also who has the right to make a decision to do something on something else. If it's an AI that does it, is this morally right or not? And if it's wrong, if it makes a decision, who bears responsibility for it? If there's nobody who can be accountable for it, then we also have a problem. There are many ethical questions like that. I think two things. First of all, that's not specific to AI. In fact, with every new technology, every time a new technology comes in, it comes with its benefits, with its risks, and what we do with it. And we see that all the time with of domains, GMOs or weapons or etc. So nuclear physics, you name it, right? Even the CERN, there were questions: are they going to create a black hole with those accelerators that's going to destroy the Earth, right? So this is not specific to AI. AI is just the latest big buzz right now that drives those discussions. I think that's very healthy to have. In each case, that we have the debate, and Ruslan has talked a little bit about that. There needs to be a debate. There needs to be organization to think about those questions. Sometimes it requires regulations. There are all kinds of ways to address it, but I think that's a very healthy debate to have that shows that the technology is having a profound impact and is likely to have even more so.
Yeah, definitely. That's really healthy, as you said, to be thinking about it. Like the whole philosophical dimension of technology is definitely great to be kept in mind, and not just operations and innovation for the sake of it. I have a last question before taking questions from the audience. For companies that would like to use data and AI to keep innovating and keep being creative during the pandemic and after, what would be your advice in terms of key success factors for them to actually leverage AI and data in terms, we heard about quality of data, we heard about privacy. These are two things that you have to do right in order to have to achieve innovation and creativity. Is there anything else that companies and decision makers have to be aware of and careful of?
Yeah, I think just to come back, I think to what Ruslan was saying, I think privacy, it's a little bit, it can become really complicated, but I think it can be also simple if you just go with the line that you just ask explicitly the user to make the decisions they want, to own their data. I think the challenge with tech in the past is that, first of all, we realized that, as long as we give benefits, we can make decisions on the behalf of the user, and the data is ours. And that created this gray line where people were starting to trade data and do all this other stuff. Whereas if you just trust the user to be smart enough and you tell them, hey, I'm going to give you this personalized experience, if you let me use your data, your decision, yes, no. You can get free X if you let me use your data, yes, no. I don't think it is that complicated. It becomes more complicated when you don't do that. And separately, you were talking about in the moral obligations. I think as tech companies, we just have to be more accountable about the consequences of innovation. We can't just say we're going to explore this because it's innovation and not be accountable for when we mess up or when it has side effects. I think that's, again, if you look at the big tech companies, that's probably where they failed the most. I think the privacy question gets a lot more complicated because it has been used as a vector to attack these big companies, Apple, Facebook, Google. They've become so dominant. They have so much data. They have so much monopoly, and their powers are increasing so much that a lot of the other businesses around are finding vector of attacks, and I think privacy has been one. And it's become, unfortunately, it has diluted the conversation around it. And because, GDPR, seriously, all these cookies, the way it's implemented, is it really providing value for users compared to, just really offering them real control over the data? So I think the cause is the right cause, but the part of the reasons why we're doing them are maybe not right, and the implementations are terrible right now. So side effect to your questions, but I think there are some simple solutions to this. The data belongs to the user. You ask them all the time if they want personalization or if they don't, and they should be in control. And you basically take responsibility for any side effect of what you're creating. And you can't just say it was innovation. I can't really be responsible for side effects.
I don't control my AI.
Yeah. So, if your AI is bad and you're associating concepts and making statements, you're responsible for it. It's not the fault of AI. The AI is just a piece of technology you create, and you're responsible for it.
Can I add something in response to what Edwin said?
Sure.
So essentially, I think, I personally think, and I talked to a couple kind of privacy officers at Facebook. So the problem with data is that it's not some physical product, right? The fact that user owns the data is not the same as the fact that I own this phone. So this is with me. That's it. So the problem with data is that once it's out there, it's out there. And the big concern of the privacy advocates, of the governments, is that, yes, the company might ask me whether I want to have control over my data or not. And let's say I give permission for the company to use the data. But then once this data is leaked, for instance, due to a data breach or something, this data can be combined with other types of data from other companies. And then we are not sure what will be the implication on the user. And that's the big concern that governments and the companies are having, because we don't know what's the magnitude of the downside that the leakage of data might impose on the users, right? So yes, giving control over data to users is an important thing, but it's not the only thing. Essentially, the user should be given control over data, but this data, the way the company uses this data, should be also privacy preserving. And when I say privacy preserving, that means that any other company, if this data is leaked somehow, later on, no one should be able to deduce anything about the user, or even the presence of the user in this data set having this data. This is one of the premises of the concept called differential privacy, which is quite widely used by Apple, Google, and some of the leading companies, and it's being developed in recent years. So this is the premise of this differential privacy. This is exactly the idea, that even if combined with other data, even if everyone else tells something about their own personal data, the companies and the bad actors, the adversaries, are not able to conclude anything about individual customers from the data set. So I would say we need to be more careful here. So it's not only about control over data. So it's a little bit bigger than that. And I've seen a question about cookies on chat. So cookies is not the biggest problem. Cookies is like the top of the iceberg. So Google, like Facebook, doesn't need cookies at all. Like Facebook can identify you like very well, like with a bunch of other factors. Like Facebook, like when you visit Facebook, they observe your screen resolution, they observe your version of the system, they observe your version of your Chrome browser, of like a bunch of dimensions. Let's say, I don't know, 40 characteristics or 100 characteristics, which pretty well identify each individual user, even without this user logging in with the Facebook account or without the cookies. So cookies is just like, you know, something that I think users understand, and that's why they got focused on, and that's why the governments got focused on this. But this is not like Facebook said, yeah, cookies are dead, okay, but we have a bunch of other techniques that can identify the people perfectly.
So is the answer to the question something worse is coming?
It's already out there.
Okay.
It was there and it's there. So, okay, so someone asked about the tracking, all right? So why are we afraid about governments tracking us? Well, GPS location is a pretty powerful thing. Like if I have a GPS location down to, I don't know, 5 minutes of each individual user, I can conclude a lot of different things about this user. I can get to know that you visited this doctor, like at this point of time, and this doctor happens to be, I don't know, endocrinologist. So if it's an endocrinologist, I know that there is something wrong with you, so I can increase your insurance premium, right? So insurance companies can start, like if this data is being collected by the data broker, or like if this data gets to the hands of the data broker, this data broker can sell it to the insurance company can raise the premiums. And then we are in the world where we are discriminated based on our health conditions, based on the data that potentially the governments collected and the data which got leaked. And like the fact that COVID came in so quickly and the governments like introduced all these systems of contact tracing and tracking so quickly means that there are so many bugs and holes in these systems, and this data will be leaked.
Well, that's a little dystopian, but hopefully the audience won't be too freaked out after this reply. But thank you so much, Ruslan, for kicking off so naturally the start of the Q&As. Just to make sure everyone noticed, once someone posts a question, you can vote for it to be bumped up, so it can be asked before, as a priority, because we will have like maybe time for 2 questions. So I'm gonna take the question that has the more votes for now. So if you want to upvote some others, feel free. So and after that we'll have a networking session. So you can look at the rooms, and I know there's a question for Valery. So you can find Valery in a room later for networking and ask the question directly. So the next question that was asked and got the most votes is actually about energy. So I think Jacques, you'll be interested in helping answering it. So AI needs a lot of energy, and that's also kind of something that is not really well known. Like Ruslan was using the iceberg analogy. I think the use of energy is definitely not outside of the water here. So what is the impact of AI as a technology that is so greedy in terms of energy, and does quantum technology would be the solution to it? So that's for you, Jacques.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm very happy that somebody asked. I think you mentioned that human brain cannot keep up with AI, and I think that in some cases it cannot be further from the truth. A good example of that is driving a car. You can put tens of billions of dollars in cars that have hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment connected to the biggest data centers of the world, and still after 10 years they cannot drive on the same road properly without being a huge risk. Any human person can learn how to do that before in no time. So and for a fraction of the energy. So So we can still keep up on many things for a lot of different reasons, but that's more philosophical than the topic for today. However, it doesn't mean that AI always. In fact, there are lots of advances in new chips, in new algorithms, using even very small data sets. It's not always about having more data. You can do a lot of intelligence with small data as well. And sometimes can be a reduction of energy. One company that we love is actually a French company that's revolutionizing computer vision. They've built new type of cameras that mimic the way the human retina works. Today, digital cameras, as you know, they have a lot of pixels. They take 30, 60, 100, 10,000 of images per second. That require a lot of energy. That sends a lot of data to data centers that have to spend even more energy trying to extract information out of that. We do a lot of things with vision, with our tiny brain, with very, very little energy. And part of that is thanks to the magic of the retina, which actually sends to the brain less than 0.1% of the information that is in our field of vision. And still we can operate with less than 0.1%. Okay, so there's some form of intelligence in the retina, and that's because we don't need to see all the pixel every 10th or 100th of a second of the time. We only really see what's changing. And that's in our DNA because of our ancestors had to be afraid of a lion that might jump in and kill them or something of that nature. So we see those things happening very fast and we don't need to see the rest. So they build a camera that works in a very similar way, that doesn't send information every pixel so many times, just a little bit when it changes. Algorithms on their chip, and then they allow all kind of robots of systems to be much more intelligent for the energy it takes to any other AI computer vision systems. In fact, so much so that their first application was to restore vision to the blind. There are 50 people in France who are blind and today can see. They can read big characters. Artificial retina connect. So that's we love this company, obviously, but that's an example of a company that is making extra efforts. And also this with our idea of interdisciplinary, right? It's not about doing just the data. It's also about knowing other things. In this case, knowing how the human retina works, that you can make fantastic innovation that actually doesn't consume more energy. In fact, consume less energy for fantastic results. But to go back to your question, energy is going to be a big domain as we have more sources of energy, more ways to produce energy in more renewable ways. If we want those things to work efficiently, they generate tons of data that varies a lot of time. Valery talked about patterns, etc. We need to identify those patterns, to recognize them, and to be very intelligent on how we use the grid. And AI is going to play a huge role in reducing our energy footprint for sure. So AI is part of the solution, even though in some cases, problem. I mean, mining data to increase the ledger of cryptocurrencies. I'm not sure that's the best usage of our energy.
Well, thank you, Jacques. That's a fascinating example that you shared, and thank you for giving us some positive notes towards the end of this conversation and lighten up the mood, maybe. Very quickly, because, well, we are representing HEC and education is obviously very important for us. We'll take a last question from the Q&A before moving on to the networking session. Vivian was asking if AI should actually be rooted in the educational system. And I think I have my own opinion on that, but maybe Ruslan, who is a professor, could give us his opinion on that.
When we say rooted, do we mean should we educate people, AI, or like, okay, so.
Well, that's how I understand the question. Maybe Vivian, if you want to correct me, but yeah, should every single person be educated about AI, like at school or maybe?
Well, my background is mathematics and physics, and in fact, I think Jacques mentioned CERN in Europe. So I worked in Fermi National Accelerator Laboratory in the US, which is CERN, but in the US, back when I was a student. So there was no black hole anywhere there. So, this is a side step sideways. So my background is in physics and mathematics. So I believe in technical sciences, and I believe that everyone should be trained in technical sciences. And AI, being like a programming or like, I don't know, software development, is becoming more and more important. So I believe 100%. I'm 100% sure that we should integrate this into our education systems from the young age, I think. So all the kids should learn how to code. All the kids should learn like basics of data analysis, because this is something that is truly valuable, will be valuable to them, right? When they analyze the data, when they see the data later on, like in their lives. So I think it should be in our education, like it has to be in our education systems. To what extent, that's a question. So all the universities in the United States and all over the world, they're starting new programs about machine learning, data analytics, and so on. Most of them are quite basic. So you would learn like basic skills of data mining, I don't know, of data processing, like linear regression or something like this. I'm not sure. There is a benefit of this, but then I'm not sure. Like people get to know about things, but I'm not sure how valuable overall it is. So I think these programs should be thought and designed in a much deeper way. They should not be more complex, but they should be thought through in much better way. So that's my opinion.
I think HEC is definitely taking this turn and putting much more emphasis on AI and data and like the bridge between business and tech, which is great. And I'm sure if some of you are interested in knowing more about what HEC is doing, Vincent will be available to answer your questions, and that's pretty exciting. I'm excited for the current students at HEC. I think we'll be moving on to the networking. I really want to thank you all for taking the time and for this great discussion. That was so interesting, and I'm sure there will be many more questions coming. There are a few for you, Ruslan, and for you, Valery, and I'm sure for Jacques and Edwin as well during networking. Really big thank you. I don't know if Sandeep or Lele, you want some closing words before everyone join different rooms.
Thank you, everybody. You were such an amazing panel. So many thought-provoking questions, and I don't know about everybody else, but my mind was just, blown away. So thank you for everybody's again. Let's move on to the last 40 minutes of networking sessions. I hope our panelists gonna join us. Hang around for another like 30 minutes or so. So because I bet a lot of people want to have like more deep dive questions to you to you all. So the way that the networking session is going to work after this is I'm going to turn off the presentation mode, and everybody's going to go back to the room just now. And you're gonna see like tables with different labels based on industry. So either you can just join a table that based on the industry that you like, or you can just chase after our panelists if you have questions towards anyone of us here. And I left a link for the WhatsApp group of the HEC community here. Join us, HEC friends of HEC alumni. We welcome you all. We hope we can build a better community, more tight knit, where everybody can communicate with each other in a faster and help each other out. Faster, more connected than just LinkedIn, where the connectivity is quite low. So thank you everybody again, and let's move on to the networking sessions.